So welcome. I will ask folks to, introduce yourselves as you join, and please keep yourself muted. We will have the opportunity to offer questions to our guests. I will turn it over to Asher to do a bracha for the land as a land acknowledgement.
Okay, so I'm speaking to you from Treaty 6 in Turtle Island, the traditional land of Nehiyawak, Dene, Region 4 of the Métis Nation, and many other indigenous nations for whom this has been uh, a place of residence or a meeting ground. And as a land acknowledgement, I'd like to say this bracha in Hebrew that expresses a desire for healing, both for, and I think it applies both for here in North America as well as in the land of Palestine or Eretz Yisrael. Elohei haruchot lechol basar, ten banu ometz lehamshich ultaken et avlot ha'avar v'hoveh, gam bimchir ke'ev, למען תהא ארצנו ברכה לכל יושביה ושכניה ולכל באי olam, which means, God of the Spirit, whose care is for all mortal beings, grant us the courage to continue and remedy the wrongs of the past and the present, even when the price is painful, in order that our land be a blessing to all its inhabitants, its neighbors, and all those who journey in this world.
Amen. Thank you, Asher. So I'll give a brief overview of who we are and where we have come from as an organization. We are an all-volunteer group of grassroots members of Reform congregations, lay leaders in Reform congregations, Jews who have been involved in the Reform movement at some point or another. We formed in spring 2021 as part of an open letter to our movement leadership about their lack of centering, let alone even principled inclusion of Palestinian human rights focus in their Israel advocacy and Israel awareness raising. Since then, we have done several different awareness events and advocacy campaigns, basically because the Reform movement leadership has been preventing events like this from taking place as Reform events, to say, hey, we're Reform Jews. We can, if you're not going to do it, we'll do it ourselves. Since then, we have even brought in to support any congregational Jews to do advocacy and awareness raising and finding each other in their own congregations. So most recently, we held a town hall, and we'll probably have more supporting members of congregations in their own steadfastness to remain and not be pushed out, to remain and continue to speak on behalf of human rights. I'll leave that part there. Other than that, we did have one successful victory, one sole successful victory in our organization, which is that we succeeded in getting the Reform Jewish Community of Canada, RJCC, to petition the government of Israel to halt its displacement plans for the communities in Masafer Yatta, which is the region that Al-Khair, the village that Eid Suleiman, our guest, is speaking to us from. And the Reformed Jewish Community of Canada did have a promise to us to put on an event hosting Asher. And then upon learning that Asher used words like apartheid to describe what he saw in his time in the West Bank, he's been several times, they then closed that commitment. So this is again on that theme of us, if they won't do it, then we will. So that's about us in a nutshell. And we are very gracious to have Asher and Eid with us today. I will read a little bio about both. Eid Hathaleen is this, sorry, I'm so sorry I said Eid Suleiman. Eid is the son of the influential Palestinian peace activist Haj Suleiman of blessed memory, and a lifelong nonviolent activist himself. In addition, Eid is a self-taught sculptor, creating detailed model replicas of bulldozers and other destructive machinery of the occupation from materials scavenged from home demolition sites. Asher Kirchner is a retired professor of linguistics at University of Alberta. He is a co-founder of Reformed Jews for Human Rights and just returned from Massafer Yatta region of the West Bank, where he was with the Center for Jewish Nonviolence, or CJNV. CJNV is currently recruiting participants for its spring delegation to Masafer Yatta. We are so gracious and so grateful to have both of you. And again, thank you for joining us a second time after after we had the big technical challenges in making this happen 2 weeks ago while Asher was still there. Aid, before I ask you your first question, I would actually like to advance to the next slide because there's a map of the region of Masafer Yatta. In the top right-hand corner, you can see where the region is in relation to the rest of the West Bank. The Israeli government has had plans for a long time to create Firing Zone 918, a closed military training area, with plans to displace. This number is old. This is the 1,000+ number is from a few years ago. This map is from the UN. So the numbers might have changed, and I'm curious if all of these villages do in fact still remain. And we'll hear from you shortly about what is happening. But you can see the villages, you can see the settlements, and Al-Khair, where Eid Hathaleen is joining us from, is right beside that settlement Carmel along that yellow road. Yes, exactly there. Eid, if you could tell us briefly a little bit about the history of your village and your community before we talk about kind of what has been happening in recent time, how the occupation has been impacting your community, what you've been doing to resist the occupation. We will get to those topics about what's happening right now soon, but could you walk us kind of backwards in time, help us know your community a little bit? How did it start?
Thank you, dear Peter, very much. And thank you, dear Asher, and for the friends who let me talk tonight with you. It's night here in Palestine and Israel. And we're almost reaching the holidays, tomorrow and day after. And Happy New Year for everyone who's celebrating. And inshallah, it will be a year of peace and happiness for all. We are living in the West Bank, which, occupied by Israel long years. And then I grew up with this, I'm 42 years old and I grew up with occupation, as since I was child, and then things not changed for good, but it's changed for bad. I'm really very sorry how the things, accelerating by the Israeli government along these decades of occupation. I mean, our small community called Al-Khair, it's a small, tiny village living nearby Israeli Jewish settlements, which called Carmel. And this, neighborhood's a long time of neighboring, but it's not that, a good neighboring, basically, because the neighbors who live nearby, they didn't want us to be here. Only this is the reason why they just affected us all the time with, with their procedures like occupation, home demolition, land confiscation, declaring closed military zones all the time for all the Palestinian communities in South Hebron Hills and Masafer Yatta. Al-Khair is an example for all these communities who located in the map you saw before a couple of minutes. And these small communities of Palestinian people who are living in which called Area C. It's mean under Israeli full control. This means these Palestinian societies, including Al-Khair, they have no future if the Israeli state, policy keep going in the way of declaration and annexation in the meantime. I believe that the future will be very less, good for these Palestinian societies who are living under settler violence, army restriction, army closing roads, and also home demolition, which is a major issue we have in Masafer Yatta and South Hebron Hills. And a lot of people witness these crimes by themselves as a Jewish friends who came from abroad, and they do, a protective prison in the area, and also Israeli friends, peace activists who came and they do a protective prison for a while in the area. Even that not helping with Israeli state, policy, which affecting us every day. Our community, Al-Khair, is an example of other communities. It's mean we face home demolition every time. We face settler violence almost every day nowadays. Day and night, the settler came and they tried to attack the families, terrify the communities, and they tried to push the community away from their homes. The major thing we have in the last 2 months is the killing of the activist Eid Hathaleen, one of our colleagues and friends and close friends to us, and some of you know him in personally or you saw him in the videos, and he's a very welcoming peace activist. Believe in nonviolent resistance, as many activists, same like me, and a lot of Palestinian activists who fighting for peace with Israeli partners in the same field, shoulder by shoulder. Oda, with all due sorry, he killed by one of Israeli extremist settlers on the 28th of July in his village Al-Khair while he's documenting their crimes. And Oda just killed in cold blood. The killer just released after 3 hours from the Israeli police, and Oda body held by the Israeli occupation for 12 days. Not buried in dignity. He just waited until his family do a big hunger strike until they push the Israeli government. And the friends just push and they put their efforts. At least we need to bring him back, to bury him in dignity. In the village of Al-Khair, since 3 years ago, when my father also killed in the same circumstances by Israeli police, and they never opened investigations against that, and they never opened the case because they killed my father while he's do a non-violent resistance with his peace activist friends. And settlers keep their violence in the occupied territories, their friends, every day. It's accelerating. We have a massive number of attacks happening. Even today in South Hebron Hills, there is a lot of attacks happened. They try to steal animals today nearby Susia. They try to beat activists also in the nearby village today also. Israeli authority just encouraging these actions of violence by their own settlers. We believe in the West Bank, I call it a Cold War. In Gaza, it's a real war. But what settlers do on the ground against Palestinian societies, who's peaceful in Area C, from North Jordan Valley until South Hebron Hills here, it's like a militia which organized by settlers and funded by Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. And they fund them with weapons, with cars, with money, with also authority. It means settlers now do the law by themselves. They're not back to the police or the real state, as we can say, army or police. They do their own law by themselves, like the old days of Wild West is going on in the West Bank, dear friends. And we should take care of that and we should put awareness about that, and we should expose that, because settlers, they never feel held accountable about their actions, that they do against Palestinian simple societies who live in Area C, and they are not Hamas. They are not part of any conflict. They are simple Palestinian farmers living in their land. They try to live their life normally in a countryside, but these settlers keep pushing and attacking them, beating them, burning their homes, burning their cars, burning their property, and beating them so hardly and shooting them in the end of the day also with the guns which funded by this radical government. And then every settler do this act, he feel free to go home. He never been investigated. He never been taken to the police, at least to be held accountable about his action. Then the others feel safe and they do more attacks and more attacks. And I'm sure you read the news. I'm sure you saw the news, how settlers deal in the West Bank. And this is what we have in the daily base. The problem is, I have a lot of Israeli friends, peace activists who care about me, and they came all the time to help me standing and staying in my place. And also Jewish friends who came from abroad and they stay with me. The problem, settlers fighting even the Israeli activists who try to help Palestinians in the occupied territories. I tell you an example. Just 2 weeks ago, Israeli activists were staying with Palestinian family nearby a village which is called Igwawis. These settlers, they came and they beat three Israeli girls, peace activists. They beat them hardly, and they went to the hospital with severe damage in their bodies, broken arms. They smashed their head with these metal sticks, and they sprayed them in their eyes with pepper. And then Israeli police never open investigations against these criminals who attack Israeli peace activist girls. And these girls, they feel, they feel very sad because even they are Israeli Jewish citizens and they not, because they standing with Palestinians, they never been get their rights by these attackers who attack them. And they know, the settlers know these girls helping Palestinians because that they beat them so hard, same like Palestinians. They beat them so hard unless they stay in the hospital for a couple of days. This is what happened in the West Bank. Israel gives settlers support and they let them do this act day and night only for one reason, to evacuate Palestinians out of their homes. And this should be exposed to the world.
Thank you. I'll say a couple of things. One, I want you to know, Eid, that we promoted your calls for solidarity during the hunger strikes after Auda was murdered. We actually hosted Auda to speak to us sometime before that. You spoke about escalating violence from the settlers and the military, and how the violence now is even turning on the Jewish and the Israeli peace activists, whereas before it used to only target the Palestinians. And Auda's murder was only this summer, and your father Haj Suleiman was a few years prior, while he was taking a nonviolent action. Can you describe so since Auda's murder, has there been even change since the murder? What's happening in your village in Al-Khair in these months? What does a typical day look like?
Yes, I mean, since Auda murdered, we have army came to the village almost every day. I count that. They came every day twice. They came in the night twice. They search nearby with huge lights, and they search, and almost they stop activists who staying with us. They took their IDs if they are Israelis. They took their passports if they are internationals, and they ask them about their visas. Why are they coming here? Why are you coming to help these Arabs, these terrorists? I read Hebrew very well, and I speak Hebrew also. And I saw how the dialogue between these soldiers who brainwashed against these activists who are just peaceful people came to help Palestinians. And when they say we are Jewish people, they get crazy about that. How come you are a Jewish person came and helped these terrorists, these Arabs, these unhumans, mostly they say. This is the problem we have. Since Auda murdered, we have a lot of violence happened against Al-Khair specifically. They came and they cut our water pipes twice. The final ones last Sunday, basically, they cut our electricity line and our water pipe also again. And we stay in the village for 5 or 4 days without water and electricity. We have elderly people need some medical supplies. And because there is no electricity and power in the community, we just go and we find a car and we put, these machines on a car battery just to save this elderly from being dying. In the meantime, listen to this. In the meantime, we have a chicken bars nearby Al-Khair. They lighted 24 hours, conditioned and also heated. Can you imagine that, dear friends? We are humans. And I tell my friends, the peace activists who staying with us, we bring also, journalists, and we bring media to the place. And I tell them, look, they treated the animals much better than human beings. With the pressure from our friends around the globe, we restore the electricity back and the water back after massive violence by settlers who demonstrate in the village. Maybe your settlers came and they demonstrate with their kids, small kids. They demonstrate against Al-Khair people to get electricity and water. Can we imagine that in this century? People demonstrate who cut you off from the power. And I say, we are neighbors, for God's sake, dear friends. Why we do that to each other? We could be a very good neighbor. We could be a very good example for, living together. But these people, I tell you guys, they are mentally crazy. They are brainwashed, and they all the time armed, and they try to harm us all the time. And they keep going out to the village with their guns, and they do prayers also. And my fear now, after the new year, inshallah, coming after 2 days, these people will be off from the schools and from their jobs, and they will do a lot of actions on behalf of the holidays, and that these holidays which coming soon. These people will do a lot of violence against Al-Khair because we live nearby, and the Israeli authority do nothing to stop that.
And
Since
just to clarify, you described the settlers coming into your village, and so for people to understand, Al-Khair, I believe you have deeds to the property, deeds to the village, purchased decades ago in the 40s. Carmel, the settlement, is on land that is owned by the village that they haven't paid for. They just took the land. They have access to the water and electricity of their own. And if you are in the village, there's just some meters between the fence and then the next fence, so you can see the suburban kind of American style houses. And so, Aid, you're describing settlers coming from the village on the holidays, especially because they're off from work, with their guns to pray in your village.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
If
Asher,
I could,
please jump in, Asher.
Yeah. So on one side is the settlement of Carmel, but what has happened just shortly before I got there in August is they put in a bunch of caravans to start a new outpost just on the other side. So the village is just a collection of houses, and they've got the settlement on one side and a new outpost right next to it on the other side, and the village just meters away from people's houses. Yeah, as Eid said, in the process of hooking up these new caravans to power and water to make them habitable for the settlers, they cut the power and water to Al-Khair, and it took a real international outcry for the villagers to be allowed to repair the damage that the army had done to their electricity and water lines.
Thank you. And Asher, I'm going to bring you into the conversation to ask you more about your role. I think, especially because I see that Aid's phone is frozen. Asher, can you talk about the role that you have played and activists like you have spent months there with the Center for Jewish Nonviolence on a few different occasions? Like, what does that role look like?
Well, so going back to 2022, I went there for 3 months with Center for Jewish Nonviolence. We were sort of stationed in the Massafer Yatta area, but I ended up spending most of my time in Al-Khair. and got to know the people of that village quite well, and was just overwhelmed with the warmth and hospitality which they greeted me and my fellow Jewish activists. Um, and I arrived just shortly after the death of Haj Suleiman, which has been spoken of already. Um, and what we did at the time was we accompanied shepherds as they went out into the fields to graze their flocks, and uh, you know, hopefully keep away any settlers that might attack them, or if attacks did happen, we would be there to document them with video and audio recordings. Um, and we also accompanied school children going to and from school. In some cases, they had to go past settlements where they have been attacked in the past. So that's pretty much, and we also documented home demolitions that happened in the area. Um, so that was all 3 years ago. At the time, I thought the conditions that the Palestinians are living under here are just horrible. But going back now this past summer, one of the young men in Al-Khair was reminiscing with me about the time when I visited in 2022, and he said it was like heaven back then, because back then they could still have sheep. They could still have flocks of sheep and take them out shepherding. And since October 2023, that has been impossible. The army has basically, or sorry, the Israeli civil administration has basically decreed that all of the Palestinians' grazing land now belongs to the settlers somehow or other. And it's impossible to keep flocks of sheep and goats, which is the traditional livelihood of the people of this area. I'll maybe pause there and allow you to
Yeah.
ask some other questions, or maybe let Eid come back
Yeah.
in.
Your phone was frozen there for a minute, so I want to bring you back in. You were talking about what things are like today, and you have fear for the holidays, the Jewish holidays, when the settlers um, have the free time to harass. Um, what is your like? How do you imagine the next weeks or months or even the next years for Al-Khair and the southern West Bank, given all the rapid change? Asher just talked about how much worse it is now compared to before. How do you imagine
I
the
believe,
coming days and weeks and months?
I believe it will be a lot of violence. I'm sorry to say that, but this is what we saw every day, and now it's accelerating much, much more. We will saw a lot of violence against Israeli activists and Palestinians, same. A lot of people will be beaten so hard. A lot of people may be shooted by settlers, because settlers feel free to shoot, feel free to do what they want, because they never been accountable about their acts. This is my fear. And every time we have the holidays coming together, and we have also later on the olive harvest coming also in October, settlers get crazy about these, kind of occasions, and then they accelerate their violence much more. The major issue here, which is very important that the friends and the audience should know, settlers bring these youngsters who was 15 and less. These boys, they can beat elderly people, activists, Palestinians, whatever, and they can beat you very hardly, and they can harm you very, very much in your body. Almost they broke your bones and smash your skull also. When these boys run away, Israeli police say, oh, we can't deal with these boys. Why? Because they're teenagers. They're not held accountable. They are just teenagers, and they are very lovely. How come? hundreds of these boys spread all over the West Bank, hilltop barns and outposts and settlements. And these boys, they say, oh, they have a lack of problems with their families in Israel. And then the Israeli settler right wings NGOs bring these boys and, rehabilitate them in these barns. And these boys do the acts and the violence for the adults. And the adults stay away, guarding them with guns. This is the problem. This is a really deep problem in the Israeli society. Always I talk with my Israeli friends, activists, and I tell them, I urge them to write about that. These boys their problem should be fixed, because these boys, they put them in these barns and they brainwashed them and made them crazy and made them much violence against Arabs and activists and peace activists. And really they harm people very much with their violence. And last year in Olive Harvest, they beat an elderly Israeli lady while she's standing with Palestinians while they're harvesting olive trees nearby Susia, a community not far away from here. They broke her arms, these boys. The problem with Israeli authority know about these boys and these teenagers, but they ever do nothing to stop these boys and hold them accountable or put them in jail. No, they are teenagers. This is really a big issue. We have it all over the West Bank, mostly in the few years, and they go out with shepherding. They do shepherding. They go also with sheep, and they damage Palestinian property, olive trees, almonds, everything. They damage everything by these sheep. And when you came to these boys to talk to them or tell them, hey, please go away, almost they beat you first of all, and then they call the police. You are attacking them. You see how it's very complicated? And the problem with Israeli, the Ministry of Interior is supporting them. The Minister of Treasury, Smotrich, support them much, much further with a lot of fund. And then they feel very good and they feel free to build their own, propaganda. They built their own propaganda in taking the land of Israel back from the terrorists who was Arabs and so on. This is my fear for the future. And I tell you, in the second days when we have the holidays, we will saw a lot of settlers coming to these new caravans, which they established nearby Al-Khair, and it's very sticky. It's like this. And these boys will come close. They will, came to the property of Palestinians, and then we face ourselves. We will face them same. And I'm afraid of the scenario of Oda back to somebody. I'm really very afraid from the situation. If you ask me about the future, I am not that much optimistic about the future, because Israel is pushing so much nowadays to make a status quo which they want about the West Bank. And today, when the UK and Canada and Australia, they announced they recognize the Palestinian state, Israelis, I read their news today, they are very upset from this step. And I believe Palestinians will pay much price about this, announcement, which is very important. But on the ground, there is nothing happened, really. This is I don't know how the absurd we have here in the occupied territories. The foreign countries, they recognize the Palestinian state, but Israel do a lot of steps against the Palestinians on the ground. And this is really, I pray for God nothing to happen, after this announcement, because settlers will be very crazy about this announcement with their government, and they will do a lot of crimes against Palestinians.
And yeah, please.
Yeah, if I could just jump in and ask Eid for an update. I know one thing that you were worried about in the wake of Auda's murder. A number of the men of the village were arrested. So let me just explain this for the audience, because it sort of defies description. But Auda was murdered by a settler, but it was the Palestinian witnesses who were arrested. And the Israeli police almost immediately said that the settler was acting in self-defense. And there's a fear that in order to make that self-defense claim appear somewhat plausible, they will charge some of the Palestinians with having attacked or done violence. And do you have any update on that?
Yes, I mean, until today, Israeli police questioning a member of Oud family. Just 1 week ago, they questioning his two brothers, and these guys they never been in the crime scene either. They just been away in their job. When they back home, they ask him to come to the station. They arrested 13 guys from Al-Khair, including me. We held with the police for one night and day for nothing we do. I mean, the police say there is no charge. Why are you arresting us while there is no charge against us? Can you imagine, dear friends, in a normal country with law, the killer released in 3 hours and the victims arrested? This is only happened in Israel because Sattler is free from any charge. Even though we have videos showing when the Sattler shooting Oud, it's documented. Everything's documented. Videos showing when he shoot, when he raised his pistol and shoot. The major video which B'Tselem, a human rights NGO, Israeli NGO, published the video, the famous video from Ouda camera, while Ouda was filming his final, seconds in his life. Ouda filming the killer when he point the gun to his side and shoot him. And even though that's not helpful with the Israeli court system, they refuse to take this evidence and held the killer accountable ever, even though they released him immediately and they held the body of Ouda for 12 days and they arrested 13 members of his family. This is what happened to every Palestinian victim in the West Bank. Every time happened with settlers or the army. And instead of arresting the killer and put him in front of the court, they came to the victim family and held them all accountable for nothing they do, really, just to witness, the act of killing their loved ones. This is really a problem in the Israeli court system when it's related to the occupation for the Palestinian, people.
With the time that we have left, I'm hoping to hear from each of you. So maybe just a few minutes each. What message you would want our attendees to leave with that they can share with others in the Canadian community or in the Canadian Jewish community? I'll start with you, Eid. And also, I don't think I have said this, but I want to emphasize this, that on behalf of our organization, we send our deepest condolences to your family for the murder of for the murder of Ouda, and to thank you again. But yeah, any closing messages you would want our attendees to leave with and to share with their community?
Thank you very much. My message to my friends around the world, especially the Jewish societies, which we have a very good relationship with them as Al-Khair community. We have very good allies around the world. My message that you keep posting, you keep talking about Al-Khair and the whole area of occupied territories. We have a really belief in peace. We believe in peace as human beings, all of us. We believe in every value for human beings. We believe in every faith of every human beings in this universe. And my message to my friends to keep posting, to keep talking about the horror which we have in the Holy Land between Arabs and Jewish together. We can solve the issue, and I will never surrender to fight for peace, because this is my message to my friends. And I believe this is a good way how we solve the conflict, and we solve the bloodshed which we have now between both Arab and Israelis. Only in peace we can solve it for the new generations who coming, but we should be brave to do that, all of us. And thank you very much. Keep resisting, and we will fight together for peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Asher.
Well, I have little to say after such an eloquent summary by Eid. Yeah, you pretty much said everything that I want to say. That what I like to say is that peace between Palestinians and Jews already exists. It exists in the friendships, in the deep bonds of solidarity that exist between Israeli Jewish activists, diaspora Jewish activists, and the people of your village. And if the government of Israel wanted peace, it would just get out of the way and let these people spread peace through both of their societies. But the government of Israel, unfortunately, is doing the very opposite. It's criminalizing this beautiful movement, and so I think particularly those of us in the diaspora need to keep up the pressure on our governments to put the pressure on the Israeli government to change its course and to ultimately to dismantle this regime of oppression and apartheid and now genocide.
Thank you both. And if we do have time for a few questions. If you have questions for Eid or Asher, please raise your hand and we'll get to you. We will transition out of today's event. Thank you so much for everyone for attending, the good questions, especially our guest Asher, and especially our guest Eid, for joining us all the way from Al-Khair. We'll say a couple things as we close out. Thank you, Joshua. If you could, Asher, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so we are encouraging participants to donate to support coexistence in the Massafer Yatta region through, I would say, both, not either, joining our Solidarity Circle or directly supporting the Masafer Yatta Solidarity Fund. Those underlined things are actually hyperlinks. Would it be possible to click on
I'm
them
posting
so
them in the chat
people...
right now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so and I think we will send these out by email as well in a follow-up email. But the Solidarity Circle, the idea there is that you join this group. There's a membership fee, and you can get regular updates, hearing what's sort of happening on the ground from speakers in webinars similar to this one. And that's for people who would like to have an ongoing, regular monthly contribution. If you're looking at more of a one-shot deal, the Masafer Yatta Solidarity Fund is organized through Center for Jewish Nonviolence, and that will go specifically to villages in the Masafer Yatta area, whereas the Solidarity Circle is apportioned among the Green Olive Collective's solidarity partners throughout the West Bank.
Can we ask Eid too if there's any other calls to action from this event? Anything that you want people on this call to be doing?
Yeah, thank you very much. I urge you, friends, to do more call to action for your representative in the government, also in the parliament, also in the government itself. This will be very helpful. I believe it's the main thing that could save, communities from being harassed or demolished or damaged or attacked by settlers. And also the other thing quickly, friends, organize and, you know, we do also protective present about the communities and the culture. This will be very helpful from both. Yeah, thank you very much. And I am very glad to talk to you this evening.
Thank you, Eid.
And if I could say one more thing, so I just wanted to make clear what's happened to the village of Al-Khair and other villages in Masafer Yatta is around the time the people were getting jobs working in 19 in within the Green Line. That was cut off with after October 2023, and at the same time, basically all of their land was confiscated, so that they can't shepherd either. And so these villages are pretty destitute now. They have no means of livelihood. Some people in the villages have jobs of some kind or other, but it's not enough to meet the needs of the whole village. So just to get by, these villages are dependent on outside aid for the time being, until they can find some alternative means of livelihood. And that's why it's so important that we stand by them and support them monetarily.
I'll say really quickly, if you're looking to do the protective presence work, there's the Center for Jewish Nonviolence, which Asher attended with. There is Rabbis for Human Rights. They are doing olive harvest work. There's Achvad Amim, they're recruiting. There is Dochat Tzedek with Rabbi Arik Asherman, who we have interviewed on this series. Green Olive Tours is doing like a tour, like a tourism, while also doing olive harvest and visiting villages. So all of these they do, and they take different levels of risk. If of course we can never predict the violence of the settlers, but any and all forms of protective presence, like Aid mentioned, you can access them through multiple different organizations. We will advance to the next slide. Some actions coming up. Bassem has to leave, but we are, or unless you still have 30 seconds, you can speak for 30 seconds about this film. But we are potentially holding a film screening soon.
Yes. Thank you, Peter. Just quickly, there are two filmmakers based here in Canada, one by the name of Mustafa Ali Hassoun and Laura Skye, who works together with Jews for a Free Palestine here in Southern Ontario. So they've put together a 45-minute overview and documentary, Never Again for Anyone, just speaking to Jewish community and connection in anti-Zionist Jewish tradition. And so we will be exploring with Reform Jews for Human Rights screening in the future.
Thank you. And thanks for squeezing us in, because I know you have to leave. Asher, do you want to speak about the next two events?
So a couple of months ago, we had a virtual national town hall, bringing people together to think about strategies for our little organization. And we think it might be time for a follow-up to that. And also, a couple of years ago now, we hosted just an open discussion, which we called Guide to the Perplexed, ripping off of Maimonides. And just to create a space for Jews of whatever political stripe to talk openly and honestly about their feelings about what's going on now. I think the genocide is pretty undeniable, although some might not like to use that word. But we want to create an open space for people to talk openly and honestly about their feelings. And so that may be coming up in the near future as well. And for all of these events, we will keep you notified by email.
Thank you. And to wrap up, we always have a tradition of closing with a bracha for justice. Asher, you can lead it. If people want to be a boisterous chorus and unmute and also do it, I welcome you to. Is that okay, Asher, for us to do a boisterous chorus of...
Sure.
Okay.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ruach ha'olam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lirdof tzedek.
So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We will say goodbye for now. We hope to see you at future events. And if you would like to get involved, please do. This is just a people-powered movement. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Shana Tova, everybody.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Toda rabah.
Toda rabah. Shukran, katir.
Shukran. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.